There is a major breaking news development coming out of the Middle East regarding the war on Israel. And yes, that is truly what it is and has been since literally Israel reestablished itself in its archaeologically verified homeland. Now, what is that news? What's happening? Well, apparently there has been an agreement reached, a ceasefire of sorts, so that 50 hostages can be released. But there's details in the story that aren't being widely reported, and we're going to cover those because they're incredibly relevant. Now, real quick, pardon me, thank you so much, everyone who has joined us over at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel, where it's only $1 per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year, fully refundable, first 90 days, no questions asked, taking the gloves over there, partnering with Vimeo, a private server. We can do videos that we're not allowed to do here. And that's just the case. There are rules of engagement, so to speak, here on YouTube. And that's just the way things are for now. So we're going to have to deal with life as it goes. God bless all of you. Thank you so much. Those of you who've already signed up, $1 level, hundreds of videos. $5 level, there's about a half a dozen. But we're going to have more. We try to do one at least a week, maybe a little bit longer. But today's news is a big deal because it has directly to do with psychological operations and what I did in the military long time ago. Now, here's the story. Israeli government, and this is off of Politico, Israeli government agrees temporary ceasefire and hostage release deal with Hamas. Fighting will pause for around 5 days, and Hamas is set to release 50 Israeli hostages in exchange for 150 Palestinian prisoners, according to local media. Now, here's the difference a lot of people don't get. There are over 200 Israeli hostages, and well, hostages in general. Some are Israeli, some were not from Israel, just they were happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Nobody knows exactly where all of those 200 are, but they know where the 150 Palestinian prisoners are for sure. But it gets even better. This just broke. 22 November 2023, 2:30 a.m. CET. Somebody probably out there can tell me what time zone that is. The Israeli cabinet voted overnight to accept a temporary ceasefire and prisoner exchange deal with Hamas, according to local media. Haaretz reports that under the deal, Hamas is expected to release 30 Israeli children and 20 women of around the 240 hostages. It's militants, it's terrorists kidnapped during their October 7 unprovoked mass attack on Israel. In exchange, Israel would release 150 Palestinian prisoners being held in Israeli jails. An official told Haaretz that Hamas may also release foreign national hostages under deals reached with their countries. Under the deal, which was brokered with officials from Qatar acting as intermediaries, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said hostages who are not released will receive medicine and be visited by the Red Cross. You see, now this is the key. What can we read in there? Well, how are they going to receive medicine and be visited by the Red Cross unless Hamas gives up the location of all of them? The Red Cross is now going to find out where all of these hostages are. And that's the big piece of information. That's the huge takeaway from this. We are finally going to know where they're being held. And after that, it's game on. Quote, there is nonsense out there suggesting that we will halt the war after the ceasefire to return the hostages, he said at the beginning of the cabinet meeting. Quote, I would like to make it clear we are at war and we will continue the war until we achieve all our goals. Eliminate Hamas, return all the hostages and missing, and guarantee that there will be no threat to Israel in Gaza. Now, Palestinian, pro-Arab, pro-Islam propaganda is about to get ramped up in a way that you have not seen before. Because they're going to try to get a hold of these people and they're going to want to immediately put them in front of cameras. Why? Because here's the deal. They're going to tell all these hostages, the people holding them now, these criminals, these terrorist thugs from Gaza, they're going to tell them, look, you better go out there in front of those microphones And you better make us look like the best people ever, or the people we're still holding, we're going to make suffer 10 times worse than you've suffered. So you better go out there and you better lie on our behalf. That's exactly what's they're being told right now. But what are you going to see? You're going to see all this get run out as if it was the truth, even though the people putting it out, CNN, MSNBC, and the U.S. government's going to make them well aware of this. You can't trust a word they say. You will not be able to trust a word they say. This is battlefield of the mind stuff. Because there are people still being held that could suffer. And believe me, those people holding the hostages, they have access to media. I guarantee they have access to media. They have communications. You're also going to see something called Stockholm Syndrome. After this long, after being held for this long by these types of individuals, uncivilized heathens like this, they are already going to be suffering psychological problems that they might never be freed from. Stockholm Syndrome, for those of you who are unaware, is a term used to describe a paradoxical psychological phenomenon wherein hostages express excessive admiration or praise and positive feelings toward their captors. These appear to be irrational in light of the danger or risk endured by the victims, essentially mistaking a lack of abuse as an act of kindness. And this is going to be the most horrific thing you're going to see, is they're going to go out and say this, and then there are going to be reporters go, well, see, these guys aren't nearly as bad as Israel made them out to be. See how nicely these people were treated? They really are civil. It's horse crap, and it will be horse crap. Ladies, perfect example here. You're on a date. You're on a first date with somebody. And through the conversation, things go well. Second date, third date, you're having a conversation and something comes up about the past. And you ask him a question about, previous relationships. And he's like, well, I do have to confess, I have raped a couple of girls. But, there were situations where I was around people that were raping a lot more girls. So I wasn't nearly as bad. It was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. And we were justified. We were justified because we felt that they had treated us, and, their group, they had treated us unfairly. We felt like we were being put upon. So, it wasn't probably ideal, but, I wasn't nearly as bad as some of the guys. Would you buy that? Would you say, well, okay, well, yeah, he has raped 2 or 3 girls, but, in context and in the light of things, seriously. See, these people being released, these children and women and men too, but the children, they are going to be walking around with invisible chains, invisible shackles on them psychologically for decades to come, especially the kids. They're never going to feel safe again. A lot of them, because I'm sure they felt safe when they were taken. See, this is what the media is going to try to use. It's something called the framing effect. They're going to use whataboutism and the framing effect, where everything is just relative and perception is reality. They're gonna try to talk about the USS Liberty, and they're gonna talk about what happened in 1976 and all these other things, or this decision the Israeli government they didn't like, and they're gonna try to put it all in the context of, oh, evil Israel, so this evil is then justified. Moral relativism. This is what you're gonna see from the media. This is what you're gonna hear. So be prepared. Whataboutism. Simply put, whataboutism is a tactic to dismiss a position by bringing up an unrelated topic as if it negates the first position. It's the most, and I'm sure you've seen it in the comment sections on these videos. Well, what about when Israel this? And what about when Israel that? And what about this other? And what about, has nothing to, the only framing that should be relevant now is what happened on 7 October. That's the only frame. And what was done, and what we have video, not taken by Israel, mind you. The video taken from GoPro cameras on top of the guys committing the heinous, horrible Well, I guess you could call it war crimes then, couldn't you? I mean, they're crimes in general, crimes against humanity. We have video of that. You can make believe whatever you want up about Israel, but this, under any other frame, in any other context, nobody would be even trying to explain. But this, they're gonna. You mark my words, that's what the media is gonna do. And I have a great analogy. That kind of dovetails a little bit with something we talked about in yesterday's video. It's going to seem irrelevant, but I want you to sleep on it. I want you to think about it, and it goes to, I know it's sci-fi, and it's going to seem like it's making light of it, but it's not. We talked about Darth Vader, right? Remember the character from Star Wars? I know the vast majority of my audience is my age and older, so I'm sure they're fairly well aware, of the storyline, at least of the first three ones. A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Okay, we know that Darth Vader really is a character named Anakin that was turned to the dark side, right? And he doesn't know it, at least in the first couple of movies, that his son, of course, is Luke Skywalker, and that his daughter is Leia, Princess Leia. Now, I would like to ask a question. If Darth Vader, who was the Sith Lord of the Empire, with vast resources and power at his fingertips, had known that Jabba the Hutt had imprisoned and enchained and enslaved his daughter, what do you think would have happened to the entire race of Hutts? That's these big, slimy, slug-looking creatures. If Darth Vader had known that his daughter, his only daughter, was being held like this by this race, what do you think would have happened? You see, we have a hint to this. Because in the later movie, Anakin, a young Darth Vader, finds out his mother had been sold into slavery by these Tusken Raiders. And when he can't save his mother in time and she dies, he kills every single one of them. All of them. Every one of them. Not the ones that just held her. Every single one of them. Now, think of that in the context of your loved one being held in chains. Your loved one being kidnapped. Having no input into the politics of Israel's government over the last 50 or 60 or 70 years. And being tortured and being brutalized and being humiliated. Day in, day out. Going on what now? 47 days? What would be your reaction? What if this was your daughter, your sister, your niece, your mom? Would you have any level of whataboutism or moral relativism in your mind? See, the people that argue, free Gaza, they've got no skin in the game. They've got no worry. And right here in this country, there are people who aren't sleeping real well at night because of people like that. People who want to do moral relativism and join with, at least psychologically, Islamic Jihad. Because they have some philosophical problem with the way Israel conducts its affairs that they would justify and not be morally sickened and outraged by what happened. And I'm going to remind people to be morally sickened and outraged. Because you cannot let time heal this wound. Not until it's fixed. Not until the problem is exterminated. And I'll ask again. If it's so morally relative, let's say this was your daughter and she came home. Yeah, he's done a couple of years for the rape and murder and a couple other things, but he's over that part of his life now, and I really think we could. Would you listen to that? Would you listen to that for 5 seconds? No, you wouldn't. There's absolutely no justification whatsoever for this. And there's no moral relativism, But mark my words, watch what the media tries to do. Watch what they try to do. Propaganda 101, when they run these people out and you hear them start to talk, and they're going to believe me, those videos are going to blow up like crazy on these platforms. You're going to say, wow, boy, they're saying really somewhat decent things about these terrorists. Maybe we had it wrong. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. It's propaganda. Because believe me, if they run into one who's going to tell the truth, you're never going to hear it. If they run into one who's going to say, these guys are horrible, it is disgusting, and it is the most heinous thing, they're never going to put them in front of a camera. They say, well, they're suffering from psychological trauma, and so we don't want to take advantage of them, blah, 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 blah. But the ones that are going to say nice things about Hamas, they're going to run them out and make them out to be heroes and give them book deals. Mark my words. And it'll all be one of two things. It'll be Stockholm Syndrome, or they're going to have been coerced, trying to protect those still being held. So I will leave it there. PsyOps 101, it's a mean part of warfare. It is a mean, ugly, nasty part of warfare, and people don't like to talk about it. People like to roll out special forces, and they like to roll out snipers and all these guys that do all these really cool jobs that are PG, I guess, for these platforms, but you don't really see a lot of guys talking about the dark stuff. So I'll leave it there. God bless. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Pray for the Patriot Nurse, of course. Lift each other up. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.